either 1, 2, or 3 of this item C. Mr. Waters, would you like to start with the explanation? Or?
For the record, William Waters, Director for Community Sustainability. I do want to thank a number of staff members in the city. There's been a collaboration among the two utility entities, Public Services, City Manager's Office to get us to the point we're at tonight. As a brief history, the discussion of commerce, how it would look, what uses would be encouraged there, how we would approach the annexations of property, how we would develop the infrastructure began over 15 years ago. The first plan was adopted or presented in 2001, which is a collaboration with Treasure Coast. That sort of set the stage of the idea of what the Park of Commerce could be and how it would be developed. Then in 2004 through 2007, we undertook a series of annexations that brought quite a number of properties in, not all of them. And then in 2010, we were given actually 2009, a $250,000 grant from the Economic Development Administration to do an infrastructure assessment, which was done by CDM. This is the next step. It is time for us to either put our money where our mouth is and get the Park of Commerce where it needs to go, or decide some other avenue to go. So we have been working with the procurement office and his team to develop how will we approach doing infrastructure improvements, which includes electric utility, lighting, landscaping, water, sewer, stormwater, and the roadway itself for Boutwell Road, which is a key spine and also identified as phase 1 in the CDM study, which was presented to the city back in 2010. Other items that are relative to this item is also a desire for the county to encourage us to take over the ownership of Boutwell Road in furtherance of our desire to have a gateway industrial park boulevard type appearance for Boutwell as opposed to a Stanton County road. It also would help us get back on the capital improvement planning for the county to have the area of 10th and Boutwell, the intersection itself, improved, and then hopefully be in line for other county funds that either will come to the county or for the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Phase 1, which we're talking about, is essentially just south of 10th Avenue North and goes to just north of 2nd Avenue South. North, I'm sorry. And the overall project is going to entail negotiating with property owners to have purchase right-of-way or have right-of-way acquired through dedications because the project's coming in, identifying what our road section is going to be, which means how the traffic will flow, how the road will look. We get to determine, and this is from some of our past experience, that it's best for us to have an outside firm serve as our owner's representation, which instead of hiring staff to represent all the city's interests, it will do the owner's representation. And then second to that would be the design engineering firm. We've been through a competitive selection process. Many of the people, the departments that I mentioned served on the selection committee. We narrowed it down to 3 each. We interviewed those 3, and then presented tonight are going to be 2 different contracts, one with the Matthews Consulting for the owner's representation, and one to Mock Bruce for engineering design studies for the roadway itself. They will also help us collaborate on acquiring the right-of-way, do stakeholder meetings, do public relations, interface with the county, and probably come back and then tack on eventually the design and improvements for the intersection itself when it becomes part of the capital improvement plan of the county, which we will go to them in the spring. The other item here is a resolution or discussion item about how you feel about taking over the right-of-way. And direction on that, so we can get back to the county that, yes, we are interested, and what that would do is give us more leeway on the design of the road, and then we will be able to sort of outline and manage our own destiny. The other item, which is the 4th one, which wasn't mentioned, is a resolution to set forth a formal process in order to facilitate the annexations of the other properties that are in the area without them having to go through an exhaustive process or not be allowed to be annexed in because of enclaves being created, which just means that you have properties in between that are still county between the city boundary and where the new property is being annexed. So that's a very quick history of 16 years. So the first contract before you is with Matthews Consulting.
May I just interrupt for 1 quick second? The one question that I had when I was going over this with the city manager was that why are we proceeding? I know that we're applying for, and this is the first question I asked, why are we proceeding with this work and approvals of each individual item if we haven't secured funding of anything for these individual projects. And we discussed that, and that was one that there were some dollars set aside for, city manager, couldn't you repeat what we discussed earlier?
Yeah, we had identified when actually about a year and a half when I came, we were looking at the issue of just the right of way, and based on the information we had at the time, and I believe it was mostly your understanding, that was the only thing that was standing in the way was how to deal with that. So we were able to find some money that was in the billboard lawsuit fund.
Right.
And transferred that money, it was around 700,000, I believe, over towards this purpose.
Okay.
Then as we got further into sort of investigating what really needed to be done and why we hadn't gotten the federal economic development grants, all this other came up. There is utility funding for the underground of the utilities work that's put into this as well. So
Okay, so there's $700,000
where's Mr. Carr?
that was budgeted, and then in addition to that, there's utility monies that were budgeted for a portion of that. But that still doesn't cover, these were my questions earlier, so it still doesn't cover the cost of, it still doesn't say where's the rest of the money to finish the project. And so the answer to that would be, when we entered into this discussion a long time ago, had we taken these steps to get shovel ready at that time, we would be realizing some of these improvements already at this point. So moving forward with some of these steps, they're still required the monies that we're applying for, and they still won't all happen if we don't receive those monies.
Correct.
But we're doing the groundwork should we get these money. I just wanted to be very honest about it, because I know we talked about the Park of Commerce in the 2020 plan, but
Absolutely, Mayor, and I think that's right on target, that the ability to even ask for money or to go for the grants isn't possible without doing this work.
okay.
So,
Well, in addition, we've met with the county's engineering division and their director, assistant director, or deputy director, on 3 occasions. And one area where they've been reluctant to put our projects in the pipeline is what is going to be the commitment and the process that Lake will adhere to pull their part of it. Now that we're actually very close, they're very interested in collaborating with us to get our projects back into the capital improvement plan, especially for the intersection of 10th and Boutwell, collaborating with the NPO, providing support letters that we could possibly apply for money from the federal department, Florida Department of Transportation, the Economic Development Administration, also other entities that are on the federal or state level. So there are an array of avenues to complement the funds the city already has, but we have the money in place to at least do the groundwork and get the design done and hopefully acquire the right-of-way, which is the biggest hurdle we have. What kind of road do we want? Do we have the property under our control where we will go? And then we can move forward with the project once it's finished, or that part is finished.
Well, I just think a lot of the setbacks that we've had in the past, just from my impression, has been that we haven't been ready to go with a lot of these projects that we're trying to, but without the funding, without having to go looking for money, as so to speak, that these projects will not proceed until the proper funding is in place, wherever that may come from. It may come from NPO, may come from the state, may come from whatever, but we have to at least get the groundwork done so that these things can be facilitated, or else we'll sit here another 10 years and, you know, and wait on it. Vice Mayor, you have something to add there?
No, you're absolutely correct. I think going in this direction puts us, you know, in position to say we're ready.
I just don't want people to come back and say, well, where are we gonna get the money, where's that gonna come? It's not gonna happen if we don't get the money. But we have to do the, you know, you have to clean the house before you can sell.
You gotta get this done first, absolutely. Because the money's so tight, no matter what bucket you go to, whether it's the state, the county, the federal government, money is so tight and so competitive. If you don't have it together, if you don't have it well designed and laid out and whatever, you're just not gonna be considered, let alone get it. And I think that's really where we need to be right now.
Okay. Commissioner, sir?
I think also a level of frustration with the existing owners out in that area have just been spinning wheels and things that in the past. And I think this is a commitment on the city's part to show those folks out there in the Park of Commerce area that there is a true dedication to putting some attention in their area. And this is a true commitment on our part to make this thing get past that preparation that you're saying we need. So I think it's important for us to get this done, get it done with the right kind of management. I think it's a challenging project because you've got to identify where you want this to go. You still have to deal with owners that have maybe different dispositions over the years, gain the right of way, then design it. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, and that's when if you were to read the scope of services for some of these folks, it's pretty expansive and needs some attention, and I agree with you, Mr. Waters, that we don't need to pile on the plate anymore for your group over there. And so these folks here have been vetted out pretty good. I think it's a good approach to a challenging situation, but you don't know how far you can get until you move in this direction. So,
And these dollars have already been appropriated for these specific functions that have been sitting there for years, and we're not going out of pocket anything else additional until we have funding, secure funding elsewhere. Vice Mayor?
Yes, I want to segue from Commissioner Zerdy's comment about good management. I think that, you know, there needs to be a heightened sensitivity to the fact that a lot of folks in town are looking at us now like they've never looked at us before. We're talking about this Lake Worth 2020, we're talking about the Park of Commerce, we're talking about all these infrastructure, meat and potato type of issues. And as I said before, we cannot afford to get this wrong. We have to get this right. And my concern here, and for lack of a better word, is that we are able to articulate exactly what the scope of work is in such a way that anybody that wanted to go to a website or a document, they could clearly see what the scope of work is, and they can clearly see the results, so we can demonstrate that we're getting exactly what we paid for and we're accomplishing what we set out to accomplish. So we don't come back in 6 months or a year or 2 years and say, well, you know what, it didn't go so well for us and we spent the money and we're no better off in 2 years than we are right now, because it's vitally important as we move forward on any infrastructure project or any major project that we get it right. We've made some mistakes in the past that have cost us dearly, and we cannot afford to make those mistakes in the future. So I guess I'm asking the commission to ask the administration to give us some sort of a boiled down scope of work that anybody can walk in off the street and pick up and clearly see what is the expectation is for the money, and at any point in time come back and measure whether or not we're getting our money's worth for the money spent
On the consulting services?
on consulting services.
Agreed.
Well, in the staff report, there are 8 items that are sort of more broad range that discuss the performance expected of the Matthews Consulting Group. And those include the overall project management as if they were staff, the right-of-way needs analysis, which includes collaboration with the city staff and the design engineer to identify what right-of-way has to be purchased, and then negotiations with the property owners to acquire that. That land acquisition services also may include some relocation. We probably are going to impact a few mobile homes and maybe some other properties. There's a public outreach component, which I think the property owners and business tenants at Park Commerce are looking very forward to. We've already been prefacing them that we are finally getting toward what we promised you when you were annexed in. They'll provide the engineering design review on the project as it's designed by Mark Bruce in collaboration with the county. They'll be providing review comments too. They'll assist the city in doing the bidding and permitting once it gets to construction selection. They'll provide services during the construction phase, like site inspections, sign-offs on project performance, and some other items that happen during construction. And they will also have a resident project representative there. So they will be our eyes and ears on the street when we can't get there.
Vice Mayor?
Well, while I appreciate, you know, how we've laid this out, I hope that doesn't substitute for my last comment.
No, we can do something else.
Because I think you need to drill each one of these 8 items down to say, look, these are the steps, you know, the order that we do. You know, these are the deliverables, absolutely. So it's almost a checklist.
Yep.
Yeah. That anybody can go to at any point in time and see that they're on course and they're doing the right, this item before this item, and everything is moving in the right direction. It has to make sense. You know, what does overall project management mean? You have to define that. You know, or, you know, give it some kind of a value.
Mr. Johnson?
Commissioners, Director Larry Johnson, Water Utilities Director, is, I've been working with William as part of the team for the selection. And I think one of the things that is different about this selection and about the scope of this work, both for Mock Bruce and for Matthews, is that this is basically providing documents that are production documents for the construction of the work. And so there is much more of a, you've asked for a checklist and what the deliverables are, and we can provide that kind of a set of deliverables, particularly as it relates to the Mock Bruce contract, which is for the actual engineering documents to be prepared. And this is not a conceptual study, which is I think what has been, or a conceptual design which has been done in the past. And there is value to that as well, but in this case we essentially started from that work, and then the scope of this work is to basically provide those production documents that you would need if you build a house, if you build an office building, if you build a road, which is what we're building here. So we do have listings of those, and we can provide a more detailed, or really we can provide a clearer maybe scope of that but I believe that is included in the scope of services here as well.
Okay, Commissioner Marissa?
William, what are the benchmarks or the time span that we're looking at for something of this caliber? Do we have some estimated time?
Anticipated the whole project will take approximately 30 months. However, we do have the caveat in the contract that the design process will be about 14 and construction up to 16. If we get the whole design package completed, and we do at the bidding and permitting stage, and we decide that we don't really have the money to raise some more money, the project can kind of come to a stop, and then it can be picked up again later with just a contract amendment that will be brought back to you. We do anticipate in the next 18 months, as we're moving forward, through collaborations with the county and the NPO, we should have the funds either identified or already in hand to at least begin the construction at some portion. And there is some anticipated development in the Park and Commerce that may defray some of the costs, not a lot, but some.
So within 2.5 years.
Commissioner Zerdy?
Thank you, Mayor. Going through the Matthews agreement there, they have an on-site person, or at least someone that will be there 15 hours a week. Got 990 total hours through their contract. At the time, there's 12 design meetings, monthly meetings, in that portion of their scope. So I think if you could boil down, as I read through all of their subtasks, which are there but maybe needed to be in bullets that way, and then there'll be reports that come out, and maybe from those reports, rather than getting into what I'm used to reading anyway on those kind of reports from job site meetings, you might be able to ask the structure of those to be hit up as like an executive summary that we might get copied on, so we can stay up to date on this, because this is a really important project in that regard. So I think for us to have knowledge, we get questions, and we will be getting questions about what's going on over there, how far is it going, right? Is it working out as proposed? Because the subtasks and all are written, but it's something I can get it, but I have that background, so I understand. I think I appreciate really what you all are asking for, and I think it could be capsulized that way. My question has to do also with do we have any kind of an estimate on maybe what the at least an idea where the range might be to pick up some of these right-of-ways, and we have like at least a budget that we're shooting for?
Well, as the city manager mentioned, there were $700,000 allocated that's been carried over this year for acquisition. There are some projects in the pipeline which the county would require dedication of the right-of-way for free in exchange for approvals for that project. We've been in negotiations already with a couple of property owners where that we may be getting the right-of-way for free. We will give them some benefit of project approval, possibly some credit for the sustainable incentive program and the LDRs, for dedication of that right of way. The challenge will be properties where there already exists development, which there isn't likely to be more development happening. Part of what the Matthews Board will do is do an evaluation and an assessment of what the actual value is of the right of way we're going to be requiring and what is going to be the least expensive, most expeditious way to route the road so we impact the fewest number of properties at the least amount of expense.
Okay, so there really wasn't a preliminary master plan yet or a desired?
We have a desired road selection. The county would like us to have 80 feet of right of way, which requires purchase of 30 or acquiring 30. We already have verbal commitments on a project that will be given to us as part of the exchange of approval for the project, which the county normally does. It also would include 12-foot right of way off the 10th Avenue North. There are some other development opportunities along Boutwell Road that might work along where that right of way is dedicated, or we could make it in a sense that gives credit toward future development because the right of way was dedicated over. It's going to be a negotiation process. There's about 18 property owners all involved. And we're going to try to, again, design a right of way in collaboration with Matthews and Mock Roofs that we have the best product we can have at the least expense.
And it's not necessarily, okay, we have 50, we're gonna take 15 on this side and 15 on this side.
The vast majority of it's going to happen on the west side, because there's development pretty much all along the east side. And there are turning radii acquisitions that happen at some of the intersections that will impact the eastern properties, but most of it's going to be, probably almost all of it, from the west side. And there are quite a number of vacant parcels on that side, or properties that have been developed that have sufficient setback that the right-of-way could be acquired.
And one last thing there, if I might. On the site visits, I'm pretty familiar with through the Matthews, and then on the Mock Roofs, I think it has in there one site visit per month from them during construction. I don't feel it's adequate.
Yeah, during the discussion and the negotiation with both firms, the intent was that we would have both a meeting and a site visit, so Mock Roofs will actually, they will be on the property at least twice a month, the way it's currently shown. And again, they will be doing it, working from the reports that are given by the field representative that is there on a half-time basis, as well as the more detailed inspections or detailed visits being done by Matthews. So it is a combination of both firms working together as far as the coverage.
Do you want to follow up, Commissioner Green?
Just that Matthews' role is different than Mock Roofs' role.
Correct.
So I know they're like gonna be our representative and that be our owner's rep. So I just thought that, the participation on the site doesn't take that much for somebody there to come on by. And I know there's different times during any project that is more intense than others. So how do we govern that type of control?
Yeah, I think that, we had some of those discussions as we worked through the project. We'll have the opportunity to, work with both firms essentially, and where we need them to come out additional times, that may be able to do that during critical parts of the project, and then have it less during other ones, so that the average would work out to the numbers we're talking about.
You have an ATE here, so not to exceed, so I'd like to see as much in there so we don't keep getting hit in the back pocket every time we turn around.
Vice Mayor, and then
Thank you.
Commissioner Roses and Commissioner.
Yeah, we spent a little time talking about creating something that's easy for folks to look at and have a time bound with dates. I would propose that, much like we're trying to do with the electric utility, that we get a monthly report, a status update that tells us exactly where we are on this, and you can document that we're on pace with where we need to be. I think that's would be very helpful, and that would help keep everybody informed, and, you know, sometimes the room mill gets a little crazy, but as long as we provide that information and we know what we're doing on a monthly basis, and we're keeping up with what we say we're gonna do, that would be very important. The other thing is, you mentioned that, you know, there's a little bit of a wiggle room here. If we kind of run short of funds in the future, we can slow things down. And I would suggest that we strike that from our thought process. We need to make sure that this happens. Okay, we cannot, you know, I feel very strongly about this. At the end of the day, we're talking about jobs. The whole point of this is jobs. The whole point of this is building tax base. The whole point of this is attracting investment into our community. We cannot afford any longer to kick this can down the road. We need to find the means to see this through. We've gotten this far. It's taken a dozen or more years. And to throw another, you know, well, mulligan in there, so to speak, I'm not comfortable with that. I think we need to commit. I don't know how we would do that formally, but there needs to be a commitment that we're gonna see this through and make this happen.
When you say that, just can you clarify, see this through what port, just this portion?
I'm saying
Or the whole project? I mean, that's a big statement.
What I'm saying is the proposal here is to spend a gobs of money
Right.
to go out and do some engineering studies and get ourselves positioned to be shovel-ready if a project comes along. The loophole in this is that if we run out of money somewhere along or something doesn't happen, we can slow that process down. Am I correct?
No, I thought it was that we will finish this to get it shovel ready, but then to continue on with the plan. That's what the grants are for.
Two things. One is we
Right.
have the funds in place to complete the initial
Shovel
complete
ready.
design, have it permitted.
Okay.
And once that's all done, we may be challenged, possibly with acquiring all the funds, or we may identify a grant source we want to try to get. And so we have the luxury in the contract to stop at that point for a while, build our financial base, and then do the construction itself.
Okay, that's a little more clear.
Okay, so
However,
that's the first time.
let me go back and rephrase.
Would you?
So when we get to the point where all the scope of work is met, and we're shovel-ready, we need to keep moving forward. We need to find the funds to move the project
And that's a
forward.
budget
And that's what I'm.
That's a budget.
And that's the
Okay.
fuel.
This is.
Agreed.
this-
No, I'm
this
glad,
needs to happen.
I'm glad, no, we've been, how many years has this been on the thing? That's where we're definitely trying to make it happen. Commissioner Mercer?
And I just wanted to, I'll piggyback off Commissioner Maxwell. Just William, so we get clear updates, because I remember before when we were looking at Park and Commerce, we get a lot of questions, and, you know, we were telling people, yes, we've applied for a grant, the grant looks good, and then all of a sudden we found out, you know, the grant didn't happen, and it was months after the fact. So, you know, you had mentioned that you had, some verbal commitments from some development and some things, you know, just clear message as those things don't happen or they do happen, just so we know and we can answer the questions, yeah, we were here, or we've had a little setback because of this, but we're working on this, you know, just so we can send a clear message as people ask us.